And good evening to the Dutch Mentor information session for our upcoming Leadership Academy, scheduled to start on September 15th of 2021. Let me just minimize myself over here in the corner. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to be laying out a session of how we will be conducting our Leadership Academy and how this can benefit your leadership team, albeit emerging leaders like doctors, nurses, administrators, fire, EMS, and police personnel that are looking to join the ranks of leadership, or currently those in leadership trying to get a better understanding of leadership skills, knowledge, and abilities. Of course, everybody is on their own journey to become a highly effective leader. It is an area that I have identified over my last 30 years in both emergency services and in healthcare, that there is a significant gap when people are going from a technical position of doing to a leadership role where you are more directing, delegating, and coaching. So I hope you'll get some good info out of this particular session. And by all means, if you have any questions, you can always email me at thedutchmentor@gmail.com or just pick up the phone and call me. So by background, I have been in emergency services for over 30 years. I started back in 1989 and became an emergency medical technician, a firefighter 1, 2, and did a whole bunch of other classes with the Hancock Volunteer Fire Department until I started fully concentrating on emergency services as a first responder, EMT, level 3 paramedic. I did my stint with Step Flight Helicopter as a flight paramedic before transitioning into the hospital, where I was fortunate to be a safety officer, an emergency manager, and then after that into more of managerial director level roles until I reached the C-suite, working in a for-profit entity, really gaining the experiences that I felt I needed in order to be a really highly effective coach and mentor to my students. I really believe in a very simple thing, and as the statement here on the screen says, that I truly imagine a world where our emerging leaders are inspired and supported to become highly effective servant leaders with the skills, knowledge, and abilities to meet today's complex issues. We focus on changing behaviors and habits to drive outcomes in engagement, quality, safety, growth, and transformation. The key words here is to try to change the habits and behaviors that will lead to sustainable outcomes. And I've seen it too often that we go to lectures and to webinars and seminars, and we certainly gain a lot of information in a short period of time, but that information is lost equally as fast, leaving behind only crumbs. And often all that information is not all that transferable to those who you lead. We read a book and we can lead, take a couple things away from that as well. So I wanted to create something different from which a student can learn for a sustained period of time and changing their behaviors and their habits to become a servant leader. Now, you might have heard the word servant in the past. It used to be that people were very directive by nature, or people would tell people what to do, especially with the millenniums and millennials, I should say, it's a difficult word for me, and the Gen Z. As you know from your children, they are different from how we grew up, and we as leaders have to make adjustments to that fact. So being a servant leader is really about being that ultimate coach, that mentor, that supporter, that person who carries a vision forward, is a visionary, and helps and nourishes and supports those who are next in line to be leaders. Ultimately speaking, that is the core responsibility as a leader, is to make sure that we are not only successful in our roles, but as we step away from it, success carries forward. Therefore, we need to think about the next level. Now, in the hospital, I can think of the physician who comes to medical school. They are highly technical in the training, and they are natural team leaders, but they don't have innate natural abilities to lead a team effectively, per se. And the same goes for nurses. In the pre-hospital care field, in emergency medicine, or both in paramedic, there too, although there might be some structure in place to learn how to be an effective leader in the field, responding to emergencies and using the instant command system. But there's a whole lot more to leadership, especially when nobody's watching. How do you manage the people? How do you recruit and retain? How do you motivate? How do you plan for the future? How do you solve problems? How to fix things that are sustained over time and not just another Band-Aid on top? How do I really understand to do a root cause analysis? So in our Leadership Academy, we're going to be diving into 5 focused areas. This will be done in 90-minute sessions over the 15-week period of time. That will be set up in a way that an adult learner learns best. We're going to talk about a specific topic for a short period of time, 15, 20 minutes, followed by a discussion or sharing of information between the students. We will learn as much from each other as you will learn from what I have to tell you in the theory-based portions. In the background, you will have access to a manual that you can read at your pace and utilize going forward, where you will have more defined opportunities to do exercises to help hone your skills, knowledge, and abilities. On a weekly basis, you will have an opportunity to spend one-to-one time with me to talk about what it is that you learned. But more importantly, when we're asking for performance, the best way to do it is by actually measuring performance. We will be developing a dashboard together on a weekly basis and set realistic, obtainable goals on performance that can start right out of the gate on day 1 after our first lesson, and you can start measuring your own behaviors until they become true habits. And habit building, as we know, takes time. So I will be going through each of those 5 lesson plans in slightly greater detail over the next few minutes. So it is important to note that the Leadership Academy is supported by a large group of folks who have been there, done that. Doctors, nurses, administrators, fire officers, mostly retired at this point in time, EMS leaders, police officers, educators, and executive coaches. They will be serving as mentors to the students. They will be their first network that they can rely upon for the time going forward. They will have online unlimited access to the free Dutch membership pages where you will have copious amounts of information, but also inside of the course material, there will be a community board and there will be a discussion board where our advisory board members will interact and exchange information, and if necessary, can function as a one-to-one mentor. So this is, again, above and beyond what you would expect from any normal program. The key deliverance for me here is that we have a support system in place. There's no expectation that after you have heard it once that you know it. Knowing something is like habit building. It takes time, and you need to do it over and over and over until it becomes a new normal. And that can take as long as 60 to 90 days for some aspects of our new learning. So the structure for our first cohort will be on a weekly basis on Wednesdays from 4:30 p.m. to 6 p.m., so 90 minutes. We will ask for some quiet time during that period of time, so end your work, remove all of the noises around you, isolate yourself, and be able to participate. Just like this session, all of our sessions will be recorded just in case you miss it. You can go back online and listen to the session, although it will be slightly less interactive, but you will never miss a beat. That will be supported by a one-to-one coaching session, mostly with myself, over the next 15 weeks, so we can dive into the individual development plan to ensure that those areas that we have identified as your weaknesses or areas of least strength, so to speak, that we can continue to hone your skills, knowledge, and abilities. And again, our 5 learning areas are the Pure Leadership Model, A3 Problem-Solving Model, Operational Rhythm Model, the Crisis Management Model, and here is that really how events happen, how we respond will determine the outcome, and then Finance 101. Now, Finance 101, we will focus with those in healthcare on for-profit and non-for-profit healthcare finance. And for those in emergency services, either fire, EMS, or police, we will focus there on annual budgeting and really important how to go about asking for money, especially around the large equipment or capital equipment that you will be seeking, and how to set yourself up for success. So what is the Pure Leadership Model? This is really all about becoming a phenomenal people leader. As you know, we can, the 2 parts of every puzzle, right? There's a process and there are people. You can have a fantastic process in place on how to respond to an emergency, but if you don't have the people who are highly motivated by the leaders, who don't believe or trust the leader, the outcome will never be as good. So here in the Pure Leadership model, we're going to teach you on how to lead with confident humility, how to be truly responsible. And that 100 over 0 is how can I say I'm 100% accountable and I make no excuses. How to be motivating with fierce resolve and how to set yourself up for success. This is about outward thinking rather than inward thinking, and how to be a genuine partner. Now, partnership has multiple levels to it, and you don't need to be synergistic with every single person on your team. But with some, you do need to. And how can you get to that level of performance? Right after that, we'll be talking about A3 problem solving. And problem solving, here's the luxury that each one of the students will be able to bring a small problem with them from your workplace, a firehouse, the EMS station, hospital, doctor's office. You will actually get to solve this using an A3 problem solving model. As you can see here on the screen, it's about how to come up with a problem statement, establish that burning platform. What is the reason for action? Understanding the current state and where do I really want to go? What is the future state or what is the target state? Understanding how to perform a gap analysis using the 5 whys or a fishbone diagram. And then how to start with the hypothesis and visualizing. If I do this, what is the likely outcome? How to set up a pilot project. The most important thing here is that on the outcome is that they can solve a problem. And solving a problem could be related to recruitment and retention, which is exceptionally important for all of us, satisfaction, cost reduction, containment, or setting up a project for success. That is an immediate return on investment. And it often will far exceed the cost of the program. Operational rhythm model. Here it is about building a high performance team, but there's so much more to this, right? It is about having the right people on the right roles. It's not about picking and choosing who's on the bus or who's off the bus, but understanding who is on your team. How can you leverage their strengths? How can you make 1 + 1 being 3 and not just 2? It continues to understanding what are truly the critical issues, how to prioritize, how to measure, not only monthly or quarterly basis, like it's done traditionally, but how to do it on a daily basis, how to make sense out of metrics. We're good at collecting data. We're not so good at analyzing and putting that data to use. The cadence of accountability is really the key, is the magic. If we don't hold each other accountable or be self-accountable, the likelihood of having positive, consistent outcome is less likely. So, for example, the problem that they just solved in the previous step will be applied to in this model. So there can be and will be a cadence of accountability until there is success. That might not be the first pilot project, but maybe it's the 3rd or 4th. We will stick with it because we will take action. Next then is about the crisis management. We all work in emergency services across the long value stream from those who make the 911 call, the patient, or fire, at somebody's house, all the way through the end when they see the physician or get, determinative care at a facility. There are lots of decisions that are being made along the way. Some of them in an instant, others well thought out. But it is important for leaders to learn their own behaviors during a crisis. It is not okay to wait to see when the crisis takes place and how they will act or often react. So here it is to learn how to control your behaviors by doing some preemptive strikes prior to. So it's really kind of like using the instant command system or the vulnerability assessments on what is likely to happen and how can you prepare for that. But here it is the importance of understanding what technical skills do I have and what behaviors goes along with it in order to have better outcomes. And then last is about the Finance 101. It's understanding the annual budget planning and developing a capital plan for successful implementation and finance compliance to make sure you stay out of trouble. Again, most of the leaders coming through our emergency service and hospitals come from the technical side of the house. They don't have MBAs. They are not CPAs. They don't have the training skills, knowledge, abilities of leadership. So it is important that we support them through this process. So with that said, it is, the leadership outcome, the Leadership Academy outcomes that we desire is that students coming in will develop the skills, knowledge, and abilities that are desirable to have in a servant leader. People will have an immediate impact on how they will lead their teams, how they will lead projects, how they will lead and put into place successful processes that are measurable and sustainable over time. They will become exceptional people leaders, have the ability to define and solve problems at the root cause, how to engage and develop a high reliability team by through critical issue analysis, how to be prepared and level-headed in a time of crisis, and how to develop a successful budget. Again, 7.5 hours of one-to-one coaching in which we will focus on our individual development plan. We will have 4 assessments along the way to make sure that people stay on track. They will develop visual management tools in order to assess on how well they are tracking in each of the subject areas and how they are starting to change behaviors to drive outcomes. So what is your role as a leader? Your role as a leader today is to nourish those who are up next. It is about selecting those folks who are going to be in leadership, both from a recruitment and retainment standpoint. Give them a gift of knowledge. A gift of knowledge is something that will last them a lifetime. And all these knowledge items that we have spoken about over the last couple of minutes are highly transferable from one service to another service or even into their private lives. So visit us at thedutchmentor.com to take a look at the program materials. Simply forward their names to me via email at thedutchmentor@gmail.com that we can enroll them into the September 15th class. And as soon as we have 15 people, we'll start a cohort. Again, the first one is scheduled for September 15th. And then if you have any more questions, by all means, reach out to me at thedutchmentor@gmail.com or call me at 646-208-5217 to discuss any part of the program. The cost of the program this year is $2,500 per student. The actual value has been well in excess of $5,000, but our goal is to change the $2,500 to $5,000 in 2022, in September 2022. The first year I wanted to dedicate to the New York metropolitan area where I have grown up and to reach out to those people I've worked with closely, both in EMS and fire, police and hospital services, to get the ball rolling. So I hope that you will join me by signing up a few of your team members to our Leadership Academy. Thank you, and we'll talk real soon.